everyone, welcome to another video. Today I have a Let's Make a Card video with you featuring some Crackerbox and Suzy stamps. Now, the idea of just let's make a card, it's exactly what it sounds like. I'm just making a card. There are no special techniques, no nothing. I've just had a card idea for a while and I'm finally getting around to making it today. So I'm starting off with all these different pipes. There's all different kinds of these. You've got a straight one, you've got one with 3 little openings, one with 4 openings, then I have 2 little curved ones. I'm using Midnight ink from Catherine Pooler and I am stamping a bunch of these. I want to fill up my background with these and kind of piece them together to create a pipe look. So I have a bunch of scrap paper here and I am just stamping all these on there. And then I'll go ahead and start coloring them in. But first I want to go ahead and stamp this wrench as well. This is also from Crackerbox and Suzy Stamps. And if you have any questions about ink colors, the stamp names, exactly all that stuff, it's always listed down in the description box below with links so you can easily find all the products I use. Now to color in each one of these pipes, I'm using Hickory Smoke Distress ink. I left these on the paper stamped and I just took my mini blending tool and I am very quickly pouncing on some color. This really takes no time at all to get all of these done. And like I said, I did all of these the same exact way. These have a few steps to coloring them in to give them a little bit of dimension, but just to start off with, just pounce on some Hickory Smoke Distress ink. If you don't have Hickory Smoke Distress ink, Catherine Pooler has a lovely gray color that blends just as well as Distress ink. I'll leave that link down in the description box below as well because it's gorgeous too. So once I had all of those colored up with just the gray ink, I'm going to go ahead and fussy cut each one of these out. Now this takes a little bit of time, however, these are really simple to cut out. There's nothing hard about cutting them out. There's no really fussy corners or anything like that. It's pretty simple, but because I did stamp so many, it did take a little bit of time. Now you can stamp quite a few more of these and do a couple cards at a time. That would save you in the long run. But for this, I'm just going to make one card today. Once I had them all fussy cut out, I'm going to go ahead and take some black soot distress ink and ink up along the edges. This is just going to create a little darker effect along all the edges and give it a little bit more depth. Then along all the cut lines, I took a black marker and I'm just going to run that along the cut lines. This just gives it a nice finished look, deepens up those edges. It looks a lot better if you run the black marker along the edges. So I did those same exact steps to all of the pieces. I cut them out, colored them up with the black soot, and then ran my marker along. And then I had this great big pile of pieces. Now this is where the fun part starts. You get to piece these together like a puzzle. I'm using my quick sticks tool to kind of keep my fingers out of the way so I don't bump these. And I'm just really right now, I'm not gluing anything down. I'm really just laying these out, trying to figure out where I want everything to go, how I want it all to connect together. Now this part takes time. You can just go off of my sketch if you want to once I was done. But putting this together really takes quite a bit of time and figuring it out. So take your time doing that. And then once I had it all on there, I left it as is. It looks kind of like a mess right now, but I'm just going to start picking up pieces and gluing them on one by one. That way I don't forget where anything goes. You could also take a picture of it once you're done and then kind of fill in from there if you wanted to. I find it easier just to leave them all on there and pick up the pieces one by one and then place them right back down. That way I don't forget anything and I don't have to keep referring back to a picture. It's just right in front of me. I'm using just a craft glue, a stronger one, to put these down. And then once I've glued it down, I pop an acrylic block on top and just let that dry for a minute. The acrylic block kind of helps it stick to the paper a little bit better so you don't have any corners or anything like that coming up. So you want to go ahead and make sure that you fill all of this in. So if I have a pipe right there in the corner that I just did that has a smaller one hanging off the edge, go ahead and put your pipe on. We'll cut that down later. It's not that big of a deal right now, but you want to make sure these pipes are all up to the edges. And you're going to have to excuse my voiceover today. I am sick and sneezing a ton, So I'm kind of having to shut this off and turn it back on as I have to sneeze. So you'll have to excuse me. Now, some of these pipes are going to overlap. That's the look I was going for with this. Just because whenever you see kind of like a boiler room or anything like that in movies, you always see pipes overlapped, and it just gives it a really neat effect. So once that was finished, I went ahead and cleaned up my mess very quickly, and then it was time to cut this down. Now you want to make sure that all of your glue is dry. So I did set that aside for a minute to dry so I didn't get my scissors all gummy. And I went ahead and started to stamp my sentiment. Now for my sentiment, I'm using a larger sentiment, but I'm going to do a little bit of selective stamping with this. I'm using again the Midnight ink from Catherine Pooler. I used this ink across my entire card. I used one ink pad, except for my distress inks, I guess I should say. But for all my stamping, I just used the Midnight ink. So to do my selective stamping, this is kind of spaced apart, so this one's super easy. I didn't need to tape it off or anything. I just inked up the happy birthday part of the sentiment. If I got any on the bottom, I just wiped that off very quickly with a towel. And then I stamped down that happy birthday only on a sentiment strip of white cardstock. Then I matted that with some black cardstock. I went ahead and peeled up my panel that I had all of my little pipes on, and I just cut those quickly flush with the edges of the card panel, and I matted that card panel with a little bit of gray cardstock. I'm only doing about 1/8 of an inch matte all the way around, so it's very thin. And then right in the center of that panel, I'm going to go ahead and pop up that happy birthday sentiment with a little bit of dimensional adhesive. I'm going to keep this very, very simple on the front. I'm doing a masculine card today, so sometimes I like to keep, most of the time, I like to keep those pretty simple with the way they look. I don't add a lot of extra embellishments or anything like that. I just find simpler tends to work well with more masculine cards. On the back of that gray panel, I added some double-sided adhesive, and then I'm just going to place that right down onto an A2 top folding card base, using it horizontally. On the inside, I want to go ahead and stamp the rest of that sentiment. So this says, happy birthday to someone who needs no repairs. I did check the top of that happy birthday, and I noticed I hadn't cleaned it off, so thank goodness I checked it. But you want to make sure that you clean off that happy birthday after you stamp it, and then whenever you go and stamp on the inside, just ink up the to someone who needs no repairs with your black ink, and you can stamp that down. Again, if you get any on the top of the where the happy birthday is, just wipe it off with a clean towel. Make sure it's nice and dry before you stamp it down so you don't get any of that residue. I stamped down that little to someone who needs no repairs, and then I also added off to the right side that little wrench that I colored in earlier. Now I did the wrench the same exact way as I did the pipes, colored them with hickory smoke, cut it out, added the black soot, ran a black marker along the edges, and that was it for coloring that in. That finishes the card off. It was really simple. It does take a little bit of time to figure out all those pipes, but it's well worth it in my opinion. This is such a fun masculine card, and I really hope you guys enjoyed it today. On the left side of your screen, you're going to see different links you can click on. You can subscribe to my channel over there if you haven't already, and there are links to all of my social media down below so you can see what I'm doing on days I'm not posting here. Happy crafting, everyone!